And then other times we added stuff to it that wasn't in the script. For example, Tommy's great line, Newman, what are you doing? I'm thinking, well, think me up a chocolate donut with the sprinkles on top. That was made up on the morning we were shooting that scene.
I'm very excited to chat with you, Andrew. I still remember the first time I saw The Fugitive as a kid and was just amazed by it. And it looks glorious now in 4K. How does it feel for you reflecting on this movie's legacy after all this time?
When I went in to remaster the picture and the sound, I was just so taken by everybody's contribution. What a great job the team that I worked with did, from James Newton Howard to the production design, especially the cast. And so I felt very grateful that I was given this opportunity back then to make this movie. And we it was a wild kind of shoot because the script was going through changes a lot. And we were trying to make it relevant and up to date up through the last minute, So it was a wonderful experience. I loved being in Chicago. Harrison and I are both from Chicago. We had a good time digging into the hot dogs and in the bowels of the city. And I'm very proud of the movie. I think it's relevant. It's about something.
And it's crazy to think that it's now gotten. I mean, that it continued to inspire future installments, whether it be U.S. Marshals or a couple other Fugitive TV shows in the years since. I mean, what do you think it is about this property, about this premise that continues to be so relevant today?
Well, it's a very tragic story about an unjustly accused man. It goes back to Les Miserables. It's the same story. And so you have great empathy for Harrison's character, for Dr. Kimball. And you want to see that he can find justice and stay out of jail and resolve what happened to him. And then you've got Tommy, who's chasing him, who's just trying to do his job. But as it goes along, he's such a good marshal. He realizes this doesn't make sense. This guy's putting himself out there to solve this problem, to solve this crime, because he didn't do it. So he has to have some reason for doing this because he's innocent. So it gets resolved in a very human way at the end.
I loved seeing the dynamic of those two play off of one another, especially in the dam scene in particular. I mean, it remains one of the more iconic scenes in I feel like action movie history. Can you walk me through what it was like shooting on that day with each other, with them, and knowing, walking them through how they should interact with one another? I mean, because I love that Tommy's line, "I don't care," is still one of my favorites of this whole movie. Well, can you just walk me through what it was like filming that day?
Well, this is interesting because there's been quite a few articles written lately about the making of The Fugitive. Rolling Stone did one, and there have been several things. And I've learned things I didn't know before. Okay. So there was Harrison said, we had pages and pages of dialogue and we decided we didn't need it. And we just needed, I didn't kill my wife. I don't care. And supposedly, according to my script supervisor, Tommy made up that line. But then somebody did some research and found out there was a Walter Hill draft done many, many years ago where he says, "I don't care. You're a fugitive." So who got credit for what is very confusing. And yet it seems to me that we just simplified everything on the day of. And that's how it turned out. It was, when you're working on a movie like this, less is more in some ways. You didn't want to have pages and pages of dialogue in a tense situation like that. So and that was the story of the whole movie. And then other times we added stuff to it that wasn't in the script. For example, Tommy's great line, Newman, what are you doing? I'm thinking, well, think me up a chocolate donut with the sprinkles on top. That was made up on the morning we were shooting that scene.
I love that. I mean, that just shows everybody's creativity on the spot. And so what would you then say was one of the biggest changes, whether it be to narrative or to character, that you came up with during this roller coaster of a shoot?
Well, the biggest change happened before the shoot started, which was basically the premise of the movie. I was given a script that in those days had the Kimball character had worked on Tommy Lee Jones's Harrison's character had worked on Tommy Lee Jones's wife and as a doctor and messed up. And now Tommy Lee's character was going to get back at Kimball for messing up on his wife. It didn't make any sense. And the studio wanted to make this movie, and Harrison had committed, and we had to figure out how to fix it. So I called up my sister, who was a nurse, in Josie in L.A. at Cedar Sinai, and I said, "Dear sister, what can get a doctor in a lot of trouble?" She said, "I'll get back to you." And 2 days later, she called back. She met a young, bright resident who she was working with. And he said, "What if there's a drug protocol?" And this doctor says, "This stuff is lousy. This is bad. It's causing people to bleed." And that became the premise of the whole movie. And we created a drug called Provasic, and we created a company called Devil and McGregor after my dear producer, Peter McGregor Scott, Devil and McGregor. And that became the structure. And it's very relevant today to be having the pharmaceutical companies be the bad guy.
And I think that's another one of the many reasons why this movie holds up. And I love that you made that change. It would have been too convoluted to have the other conflict be in there. So I love that. Now, in looking at the 4K remaster, I mean, I thought it was a movie that looked beautiful even on VHS back in the day, and it looks even more beautiful now. Is there any particular sequence or even just shot that when you were going through the remaster, you were amazed to see how it looked in the new format?
Well, first of all, when we made the film in 93, all I could do was make it brighter or darker or bluer or redder. That's all we could do in a laboratory, a film laboratory. So now when you remaster and you're working in the digital world, they went back to the original negatives, which was in a vault somewhere or in a salt mine. They rescanned it, and you had this incredible range of flexibility as to what to do. So, for example, there's a scene where Tommy's leaning up against a trailer, and the lighting didn't match from one angle to the other. And I was able to go in there and take the side of his face down, color it was density wise, so it could match. And the reality is, I've told the story. I saw the movie on a $40,000 monitor when we were remastering it, the picture, right? And I think that the quality of what's available on a 65-inch high def screen with the 4K Blu-ray is better than you'll see in any theater in the world. There's more information coming off of that monitor than we can project. And my friend Tom Holman, who was the creator of THX, Tom Holman Experiment Crossover, I went to college with Tom. He verified that. He said, unless you're using Dolby Digital, this is better looking. So for people who are aficionados of high quality, the 4K Blu-ray with the new players is the way to go.
I love that attention to detail, especially. That's something that could be easily missed by audiences, but it's something that's going to pick up great. Something though that I feel. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
In terms of audio, what's a great story? Frank Montano was a 27-year-old kid who was mixing for the first time. He got a job working as a mixer. Mm-hmm. The guy named Donnie Mitchell, who was the top mixer in Hollywood. We did Under Siege together. He got nominated for an Academy Award. The next movie was The Fugitive. He got nominated again. Right. He went on to become this incredible mixer at Universal. So when Frankie found out that we were going to remaster it, he said, "Andy, you got to let me do it. I was the guy who was there. This is my legacy. I want to make sure it sounds the way I want to make it sound." So luckily, we were able to get Frankie to do the remastering of the audio. And when I first heard it, it sounded so clean and clear. I said, you need more background noise, more noise in the background, because the dialogue was so clear. Anyway, it sounds great. And James Newton Howard's score, it's incredible to hear it in Atmos and through all these different speakers and stuff like that. It's really a great improvement on the original movie.
Before I let you go for my final question, the train crash is obviously one of the more iconic sequences from this movie. And I mean, the Intravision tech that you used to create that was stunning back then, remains stunning today. How does it feel, though, to see where that technology has gone of, being able to project these big sequences onto sets after having used it yourself for that train sequence?
You know what? If we would have done it today with the modern technology, the sequence would not have the impact. People feel that's a real train. And the great part is the next day, after everything's over, and Tommy's walking around with his marshals, and you see the carcass of this train. I mean, it's an incredible reminder of what's going on. So I don't know, I think we had 4 or 5 different kind of intravision shots in there, but pretty much it was real. And I would want to do it the same way again. I mean, I don't know what the costs are one way or another, but if I could convince whoever's financing the movie to do a train crash, I'd say let's do it with a real train. And the train is still sitting there on the tracks. It's a tourist site.
I agree with you. Practical is always the best way to go because it always sells it better than a visual effect ever can. Well, I know I am out of time, so I will go ahead and let you go. But thank you, Andrew, so much for taking the time. It's an absolute honor. And this movie is, one of my favorites.
Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.